Hello, everybody. I am Allison Mata, and this is Defense Diaries with our continuing coverage of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts versus Karen Read. Today is Friday, May 23rd, and there is no court today. So instead of court, we have a special guest, and most of you already know who she is, but attorney Melanie Little, who has been covering the Karen Read case since the very beginning. She knows everything about everything. She's an attorney and a friend, and I'm excited to have her here. And we're excited to have all you cupcakes here. So without further ado, here is attorney Melanie Little.
Yay.
Hey, Mel.
Hi, Allie.
We have this little, because you send us cupcakes invasions all the time, we have this little soundbite now.
You're my cupcake drops.
I love it. I love it. It's so innocent, though. And we're not so innocent. Welcome to tonight's live stream with Catherine Zeta-Jones and her special guest, Christina Applegate. Because if you looked at that thumbnail, you might be like, who the F is that woman? Because that's not Melanie Little. So
right. That is AI putting us together from the series Dead to Me. And yes, those are the characters that we're fashioned after. And those are the soccer moms. Yeah. And we're just some normal soccer moms.
Some regular soccer moms.
Sorry, of course, I keep getting a tickle.
What are we doing? What are we doing here? What are we doing here? When are we going to see some evidence that John O'Keefe was hit by a car?
I don't know. I don't know.
Is that going to happen? Like they have one witness left.
Do they really?
Yeah, one. It's going to be Judson Welchure, the accident reconstructionist. And here's an interesting thought too. Not an interesting thought, but something that I thought is probably true. So you know how Wednesday, all of a sudden, there's no witnesses. Like they put on out of order the brain surgeon who testifies that he fell backwards and hit his head, and that's how he died. Right, he never said he got hit by a car, by the way.
No.
And then, there's a lull because the next witness who has to come back to the stand because she was already on the stand, they got to find her now and, have a big long lunch and then come back. And they're like, yeah, well, we don't have anybody for tomorrow. And, Friday, we're just going to take off on Monday. We're just going to take off. Here's the thing. Welchure could have got on the stand on Thursday, except if he did, Brennan wouldn't be able to prep him over the weekend.
Right.
Because there's a court order saying he's not allowed to talk to his witnesses while they're under oath, which everyone knows anyway is automatic. But they had to make it a court order in this case because apparently he might have done it last time. Or, well, not him, but perhaps Lally or Tully or whoever was prepping the witnesses last time. But they could have put Judson Welchure on the stand on Thursday and brought him back on Tuesday.
It's clear these witnesses are watching each other's testimony. I mean, all of a sudden, out of the blue, the expert on his own decides to write a new report and then copy and paste from his other one. Yeah. Here's a report made at your request.
Yeah, pursuant to your request. And who believes that?
Right. And that was Shannon. What's his last name?
Shannon with one N, Burgess. Yeah. But also, what expert goes out and just sua sponte does their own report, not knowing whether they're going to get paid for it or not? That's just ridiculous.
Right.
Every expert witness has a contract. There's an agreement of, I could supplement this for you, but here's how much it's going to cost.
Right. You don't just do work without saying, hey, by the way, I'm going to do more work. Are you going to pay more money?
Right. That it
And
just doesn't it just doesn't
it
work like that.
it
They
just
just
doesn't.
don't, generate reports and expect that they're going to get paid.
And
So,
then to just expect us to buy that he inadvertently said, "This is upon your request. Here is the
right.
supplement that I'm creating."
Hmm. Yeah, and then if what he says is true, because he testified, I mean, now that we're just jumping right in, Burgess testified under oath on the stand that he spoke to Hank Brennan about it on May 7th. And Hank Brennan said in open court, this was a big surprise to me to get this report on May 8th. I didn't know anything about this until May 8th. So
Yeah,
which is
crazy.
it?
Now, I thought that initially Brennan said he had to call Welcher before he called Burgess. Did I get that wrong? I don't know why I thought he said that.
I thought he said no. I thought he said he now I'm confused. Now I'm not sure. I
Well,
thought that he said he was going to need to call Welcher back. He couldn't do it out of order because Welcher's going to rely on whatever, like for whatever reason. I think Burgess had to go first, but maybe
okay.
someone in the chat knows
Maybe
better
it was.
than
I just know he said one of them had to go first, and I don't know why I
right.
thought that it was Welcher at first. So,
I think
maybe it
Welcher is
wasn't.
basing his accident reconstruction on the data of Burgess, and I bet he wants to end on the accident reconstruction because as of right now, there are no pieces that have been put together that even indicate that there was a car accident or how this car accident happened, and there is
Right.
no medical witness giving any causation to these injuries.
Yeah. I
There's no
mean,
causation to a car accident yet. So is that going to happen?
they've got witnesses that establish that Karen Reed drove to 34 Fairview.
Right.
Karen Reed dropped John O'Keefe off at 34 Fairview. Then, oh my goodness, shocker, Karen Reed left 34 Fairview.
Yeah, and
It's
she's back home by
unbelievable.
12:36 because Garino said so.
But
She connects to the Wi-Fi.
don't forget what else they proved. Karen Reed turned around to leave 34 Fairview.
Well, not even. She made a 3-point turn on the
3-point
street leading up to like on a different street, allegedly, which is not really even proven because if you think about it, it's a 3-point turn based on this text stream data that is not attached to any timestamp or date stamp.
Oh, right. The
Mileage.
3-point turn is not when they claim she hit him, right?
No,
It's
there
when they
was another trigger event where she reversed, and
okay.
that's when she hit him. I think maybe. I
Yeah,
mean,
because I was confused about it at first. I thought that's when they were trying to say it happened, and then I was like, "Wait a minute, how are they using John O'Keefe's data to determine a turn happened
mhm.
if that was the turn that killed him?" So no, that was just where they're claiming they were able to hone in on a time because of that turn.
Because of the direction his phone was but maybe he was waving his phone in the air as they were going over a hill, like all of the ridiculous witnesses have said, which makes 0 sense because think about it. 1162, this alleged key cycle that they're allegedly talking about, I guess, because it's so confusing that I don't know how a lay jury is going to understand this when we're attorneys and we do this for a living and we're like, what are they even trying to say?
Right.
Think about it. If she's backing out of there's on the One Meadows video, she's backing out of the garage. She hits John's car. She goes forward. She goes in reverse. She goes out the driveway, right? That's
Right.
a 3-point turn.
Right.
Think about when she's pulling and when the tow truck driver is pulling her car out of her parents' driveway in Dighton. They back it up, and then they back it up, they back it into the street, and then they pull it up onto the tow truck. That's a 3-point turn too. So can we take those 3-point turns and try and match them with some other data to say that that's when 1162 is? Because during the first trial, Trooper Paul said his testing of the car, when he tested the car at the outside the Canton Sally Port in the driveway, that's 1164. Okay. I can count backwards, right? So 1163 would be the tow truck driver driving her car off of the tow truck and into the Sally Port. And then 1162 would be her parents' driveway in Dighton, which
Right.
also coincidentally is a 3-point turn.
Boom. They've just really
I
solved the
just
case.
cracked the case. I
Right.
think I just cracked the case.
I mean, I was saying that before. I'm like, what about those key cycles before? This is not lining up with the first trial key cycles.
No.
It's just not.
No.
And
And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to confuse the issue, conflate the issue, and that's why the defense may need to call Trooper Paul. and say, "Oh, Chief Paul, so remember when you testified at the last trial?
Right.
What key cycle was it that you said that you were testing the car in the driveway at the Canton Sally Port and be 1162, 1164?" And we can
Right.
all count backwards 2 key cycles. Am I missing something, you guys? I mean, tell me if I'm missing something, because it seems to me like that's what they tried to sell last time, and because it didn't work, they're trying to sell something different this time.
For sure. For sure. So let me ask you this. And I don't know where to start. So I'm just going to go wherever my mind takes me.
That's good.
Who do you think either they will call or they should call the defense as
Mhm.
their very first witness?
Oh, let's call Proctor first. Let's just come out with a big bang, right? Because right now, the Big Bang Theory, right now, he's like this the villain, right? He's like the mastermind of everything. He's got his hands in everything. He lost his job because of this case.
Right.
They need to hear from this guy. They need to know why he was fired because of his bias in this case. Started off with a bang. Some other attorneys have said maybe it's better to keep him mysterious, and then that way he can't come on the stand and like make excuses for himself and try to seem sympathetic, because he's already testified and now he knows all the mistakes he made, and he can come in and like fall on the sword and a big mea culpa. But I kind of feel like they have to call him, and they might as well call him right away.
Right. I feel like they have to call him too. And Bob, he said that he thought Proctor first. And I was thinking, because we we did it with our members live. We asked them, and somebody said, crash daddies. And I was like, I think it might be better for the jury to latch on all the corruption of Proctor, all the corruption of everyone, if they hear first from Arca and they know that car didn't touch that body.
Yeah.
And then Bob suggested, which I think is, if it could work, might actually be the best, of splitting the two.
Oh,
And
that's what I
doing
thought too.
one of
Bookend them.
Right. One of them, if their
Yeah.
testimony can work that way and flow that
Oh, yeah.
way, bookend them and end hard. And I was thinking maybe end with like Higgins, Proctor, and then a crash daddy. But
Yeah, I mean that's a good idea too. I mean, it's all about strategy, right? And maybe like because they've just heard, well, let's see what happens with Welcher, right? Like it may
Right.
be better to put on. I don't know what Judson Welcher looks like, but I don't know that he's going to be better looking than the crash daddy. So, like that's how they're ending it, and then start off with somebody who's going to comment on. I don't know which one that's going to be, whether it's Wolf or Rentschler, who's going to come on and immediately contradict everything that guy says. And
Right.
here's why, and here's all the other stuff. And then, by the way, oh, look at all these other people who did such suspicious things during the course of the night of the 28th and into the 29th. And by the way, it wasn't the 29th into the 30th, like Shannon Burgess said in his report, which a lot of people may discount because, oh, big deal, he's 24 hours off. But, that goes to his like,
Right. His
his
ability to like,
laziness, his
yes,
sloppiness, like
his inaccuracies. And then he's like, no, that's just cadence. That's just cadence. Your entire point is to tell us the date and time that things happened. That is not like a minor oversight.
it's a typo. Like his resume was a typo where it said,
Oh my Lord.
a school that didn't even have the degree that
Doesn't
he
even
said he was not even
offer it.
pursuing. It was like he had the degree in 2018, but he didn't go back and update his LinkedIn. Well, update it to say what? Like you forgot that you didn't get your degree at a
Right.
certain
That you're
time?
still pursuing it.
Like
And
to
I don't know.
update it would be to add a job or add a degree or a
Right.
certification.
And one of our members in our members only live said that there's been someone recently came out and said he wasn't even enrolled in the school since 2018. I mean, I know nothing about this. Have you heard that?
I saw that on Twitter too. Like somebody wrote like an email to the school, and then the school actually wrote back and said,
I didn't
no.
know if the school could just tell you that. Like what?
I thought there would be privacy laws too. I don't.
Yeah, I didn't think about it too much, but
Unless they know this trial's going on and they're like, we just want to disown this guy. Like we no, here's the information. Take it. It's not true.
yeah.
Back in the day, remember, you could like say on your resume you went to college anywhere. Nobody could ever disprove it. It's
Right.
too easy to disprove these things nowadays, And
Yeah.
A younger jury, I don't know how they'll take that. They might think that's a horrible thing, or they might just be like, no big deal.
Yeah, I feel like when they doubled down and he was like, but I never did it in a court of law. And then on redirect, well, you did it in a federal case.
Yeah.
I feel like that if they weren't already like if the prosecution had like, oh, all right, that's nothing, then the redirect was like Are you fucking kidding? Sorry, because I know that
I know it's your
you're
channel.
yeah,
Fuck
but
all you
there's a
want.
lot
Say
of your
fuck all you want.
cupcakes here.
No, it's like too late. It's after dark. There's no
It's
kids
after dark.
watching.
It's our after dark. But
Um,
they're like, "Are you fucking kidding me?
yeah,
You almost had me tricked. You almost had
right.
me thinking it was no big deal, and then it becomes even a bigger deal."
Yeah,
Uh,
you don't file false papers in a federal court.
no,
It's a crime, you know? And whether he testified or not in that trial or that case, who knows? Maybe it's settled. Who knows what happened with that case? He said he never testified in federal court, but yeah, but this is like a false filing in federal court.
right.
That's a
It's pretty
problem.
that's a problem. What do you think? There's been a lot of talk about the sneaker. I know first trial, when I first saw the pictures, I was like, "Are you kidding me? That is a different sneaker." I'm like,
Me
"There's
too.
no way it's the same sneaker." And then everybody said it was lighting and they, like sleuths were looking at it. And I was like, "All right." I mean, the defense didn't bring it up and everyone's saying it's lighting. I guess it's just lighting. And then you have this kerfuffle with the which shoe, both of the shoes in evidence were found
Right.
at 34 Fairview.
Right.
So are you showing us you have no idea where this second shoe came from? Like that was so weird and then never again also never brought up again by the defense. So what do you think about the sneaker as you sit here today?
I mean, are they so careless with marking their evidence envelopes? I mean, it just goes to the grand scheme of how there is no chain of custody here. And it,
Right.
it was weird because Buchanan looked at that envelope twice. He's like, oh, no, this is the one at 34 Fairview. And he whips it out and it's a right sneaker. And I'm like, but they pulled out a left sneaker the other day. Connor
Exactly.
Keefe, it was pulled out a left sneaker and said this was the one from 34 Fairview. So which is it? You're just bumbling idiots who don't know how to. He wouldn't even admit that he knew Proctor's handwriting on the envelope.
Oh
And he
my
was his
goodness.
supervisor, partner, whatever the hell he's calling himself now for 10 years. Like what do you mean you don't know this guy's handwriting?
He's a lieutenant and he tried to say he doesn't know if there's evidence logs. Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know how that works. I don't
Mhm.
even know if there are evidence logs.
Yeah.
Are you seriously how
Nope.
stupid do you think the jurors are?
Right.
And then, Alan Jackson went through all the questions and he eventually like admits like, yeah, I handled drugs a lot and yeah, evidence logs are kind of important and yeah, every time we put it in and out, there's a log and then they circled back to the evidence tape and either
Yep.
using different colors or initialing and how important that is. And then he asks him, "Did any of that happen here?" No.
No. And he came off, I think, like a smarmy SOB on the stand. So if that was their answer to keeping Proctor a mystery, I don't think that he came across very well, Buchanan.
I don't
Um,
think so either.
and there were a lot of things that he could not explain that only Proctor can explain. And I just, I wonder what is the jury thinking? What is their impression of these people? Because now we're on round 2 or season 2 of this Michigas, and we're looking at this all over again. Like, could it get any worse? And then every day it gets worse and worse and worse. It's mind numbing.
So
You
you
know,
bring up the jurors and what are they thinking and what are they
mhm,
doing? So when we had that day where I don't know who heard it. I think you might have heard it right away and Bob and I missed it on our live where
mhm,
someone says under their breath asshole about Yannetti. So we were all everyone was all, possibly was that the judge? Was that the judge? When she made the next day or 2 days later that admonishment to the jury about
mhm.
don't laugh, don't make noises, don't say anything, I was like, "Oh no." Was it possibly one of the jurors that's why she's giving this admonishment? Everyone in my chat went, "Allison, no, no, no. The jurors are laughing. Your first instinct was right." Because at first I was like, "Oh my goodness." She's like, "Don't scoff at the Commonwealth's case. It's not fair to them. You have to listen." And then I was like, "Wait a minute. Could that be why?" And everyone was like, "No, no, no. It's definitely that they're rolling their eyes. They're scoffing at the Commonwealth's case." What is your feeling about that? What prompted the judge's admonishment to the jury?
Well, we didn't catch the asshole thing live, but then like an hour later, somebody said, "Oh, look at this thing on Twitter. Let's rewind it and listen to it." And so it sounded like a female voice, but it didn't sound like the judge to me. It sounded like she was already standing up and walking to sidebar. And I thought at the time, I said, I think it could be a juror because I've been in that courtroom and the jury is literally sitting almost on top of the witness. Like that's how close, that's how tight these quarters are. And she may have been saying it about the judge, because I think it was right after the judge had said, no, you're not going to get a sidebar. And then she gave them a sidebar. And I don't remember exactly the circumstances of it, but it might have caught a female juror's voice because that courtroom is so small. Then some other people said, oh, no, it was, Laura McLaughlin and a hot mic. I really have no idea. And so I didn't really want to perpetuate like the rumor of it, because I honestly didn't know if it was the judge. So many people were pointing fingers at the judge, definitely her.
And I was saying it could have been someone saying, ask blah, 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 too.
Ask her. Yeah. Or
Right.
something like that. Like, it was just, like, look, we love to latch on to these dramatic things in the middle of the day because some days are just so boring that we're just looking for something to get excited about. Right. And that admonishment to the jury, especially because she wanted to speak to each and every one of them individually, I'm thinking right away, oh, here we go again. Somebody was at the American Legion Hall talking about being on the jury, and somebody told a guy who told a guy who told a guy who told Fanning who told a court officer. And now she's going to start, because they were apparently being very open with their facial expressions and laughing. And it seemed like you can already maybe pick out who the people are who are, free Karen Reed, maybe, or who think she's John O'Keefe did not get hit by a car.
Right.
And so maybe she wanted, maybe somebody complained to her that the jury was being too open with their facial expressions, and she just wanted them to tell them to tone it down, or I don't know.
Right.
Somebody said there were two jurors that were like split up, like they were sitting next to each other, and maybe they were laughing and giggling and talking amongst themselves or flirting or something, and they split those two jurors up. Somebody said they moved the person out of seat number 1 and put them in a different seat. So I don't really know, but
and then there was this whole other conspiracy or stuff on X about someone writing a letter to the judge, one of the jurors writing a note to the judge, can you please stop automatically sustaining the Commonwealth's objections? And
yeah, Howie Carr tweeted that, and he said he heard it from a guy who heard it from a guy. So I don't really know I don't know. I have no idea if that's accurate or not.
Right. I mean, I've never, ever, ever heard of such a thing happening. That'd be a pretty big deal if a juror were to write a note like that and ask the judge to stop doing that. That's
yeah. But how many trials do we watch where, like in Florida, the jury is allowed to ask questions of the witnesses? Which, as a lawyer, I hate it, but as a person watching a trial, I love it because then you know what the jury is thinking and the things that they want to know. And so that would be so cool in this case if they were allowed to ask questions of the witnesses, because
that would be amazing.
Could you imagine? And somebody might say, hey, how come that sneaker looks like it has a black sole? And then you pull it out of the bag and now it has a white sole. I remember when this happened a year ago. I was on the internet. I'm looking up all the Nike like styles, and there is a style that has a black sole. And the glarer, Will, is going to die on this hill. He's like, that is a different sneaker. I will die on this hill.
I mean, it really looks different. It does. I can't imagine how the defense would not be pointing that out if that were the case.
But even more than the sneaker, here's another thing I thought about today. Because I saw somebody say something about it somewhere. I can't even remember where. If he lost his shoe, right? Because he allegedly got knocked out of his shoes by this alleged motor vehicle accident, right? To the way where he lost his shoe on the curb, and then he flies and does a pirouette and somehow lands on the lawn with one shoe on. Why are his socks not all dirty and grimy and full of mud? And because you see when he's in the hospital, he's got the socks on his feet. And one of the socks is like upside down, like the heel is on top of the foot. And I have so many questions about the socks, because to me, and if you watch people who do forensics, the clothing tells a story, right? The clothing can often tell you what happened to a person and how they died. John O'Keefe lived in a house where he didn't like people wearing shoes in their house. He insisted they take their shoes off, right? Which is a common thing. On a lot of California people have shoeless houses. A lot of people do, right?
Right.
So if he went into 34 Fairview that night, the weather is messy, it's muddy, he would take his shoes off as a courtesy to the homeowner, because that's what he wants done in his house, right?
Right, for sure.
Fight me on it. His socks would have had dog hair on them, because that dog probably shed like crazy. I mean, I don't have a German Shepherd, but I've heard they shed a lot. The socks never made it into evidence, despite the fact that they were on his feet in the hospital. Nobody knows where the socks are. And to me, the socks would have told a story.
Right. They would have, at least, like you said, they would have had to have like some mud, they would have been, I mean, I guess we'll never know if they were soaking wet or, stuff like that. But
right. Pierce says that who wears Adidas socks with Nike shoes? Love it.
I know, and some people are like, his socks are on backwards. I was like,
Right.
that's
Hazel says the socks are with Shannon's degree missing. I know. Where are the socks? The socks tell a story. We don't have the socks.
yeah.
There's so many holes in this case. I just, when are we going to hear about a car accident?
It sounds like never, based on what you're saying. If that's
And
got one
you're the
litmus test.
technical person. You're so good at like the puzzles and the charts and the putting together. And I remember last year when we did a show, like maybe our first show together, and I think you were like talking about the taillight reconstruction, right? Because you were really like into that. Was it the taillight reconstruction
It
or
was,
something
yeah,
else?
it was.
And tell us more about that, because some of these pieces didn't fit in the taillight at all, right? And all of the pieces like that Proctor found are over here, and the ones that
Yeah, it was kind of crazy because they did a great job, the defense did, with the glass at the end with
Mhm.
their
the chart,
chart, or what do they call that?
a chalk.
Their chalk. Um, but I know that there was also tail light that didn't match anything, and the way I think Lolly was questioning her, right? The way Lolly
Mhm.
was asking the question, she's like, "Well, all those sevens you just said, and the ones she had just mentioned were the ones that actually had stuff in it. They all came from this tail light, yes." But I don't think it was ever made clear to the jury that some of it was not the same. But what I was focused on with my little chart last year was which pieces, and I still understand that the ones that the CERT team found could have been planted as well. But which of those pieces look there's photographic evidence of it being found at least that day, and where did those fit? Um, because the evidence bag had different dates on them. So I was
Right.
like, not one evidence bag had a date of being collected on the 29th. But then when I compared like the photographs that were taken by CERT, so, like there were the pieces that could be identified back to the ones marked as February 1st as being
Mhm.
collected on February 1st were in those photographs. So I was like, okay, so that's a photograph we know was taken on the 29th. So
Maybe.
even right,
There's no metadata,
that's true too.
right?
But so even though the bag says collected on February 1st, it looks like, at least if the CERT team is saying is true, was collected on a different day. But I don't think there's any way to say the CERT team can say there. I mean, clearly we know how many, even a year later, whatever time later, they're just testifying to, yep, if they're showed a picture, this is the one that you collected.
Right.
They're saying yes. They obviously have no idea which piece was
Right.
which, and
Right.
which they collected, which someone else collected, where it was collected, you know. So I don't there were definitely pieces of taillight that never fit together. And this is the strangest part about it. So you've got a glass that's in his hand, right? Basically, like right next to his body.
Mhm.
They find like what, 5 pieces of that glass? Like they can put together maybe 4 pieces. They put together the entire fucking tail light.
Except for
Every piece
one little
except
piece.
the piece that was broken on in John O'Keefe's driveway,
Right,
you
right,
know, every single piece of it. It makes no sense. How in the hell did you find all those little pieces of plastic, but
right.
the glass that we know was in his hand, that
Yep.
was still next to his body, you could only find 4 of the pieces? Where did those go? And how can anyone believe that you can find all the pieces to one and not and only find 4 to the other?
That's a great point too, because that glass would have been found closer to where his body was, which would have been on the lawn, and the taillight would have to have been in the street, because that's where it, allegedly exploded and cut his arm, because she didn't hit him. Her car didn't go onto the lawn. There's no tire tracks on the lawn
Right. And it
that we
also
can
begs the
see, or that
question.
any inspector, investigator du jour found. I mean, wouldn't that be obvious if there were tire tracks on the lawn? Wouldn't that be
Right.
a clue? You would
Right.
think that they would
They'd
see.
see that if it was wet and could track a cat, it can track a tire mark.
Right.
But it's like they never explain the interplay with like how they think the glass came to be broken by this accident. If it's by the tail light right then and there, how in the hell does it get all those feet into the snow right next to his body.
Right. Was he
It
clutching it in his hand? And if
there's
that's the case, then it broke. Wouldn't his hand have been all bloody
blood,
too?
something. And what about centrifugal force? Like, how the hell do you keep holding on if you're hit with that much force that you're pirouetting, your body's getting thrown? It's just
Your phone just lands underneath your body. I mean, it's just the way it happened was just so perfect. How about,
yeah,
it's easier to believe whatever comes in the house with the guy goes out of the house. How about that?
right,
Whatever
right.
came in has to go out.
Yeah,
And you throw it
it's
out there and it breaks. How come half of that taillight wasn't all the way down the block getting plowed down the street for days to
right.
come? How come a couple of weeks went by and they kept finding more pieces and more pieces? And how come nobody who lives in 34 Fairview ever found one piece of taillight?
Yeah, we talked about that in our members only live. One of them said, "Well, if all this stuff is being revealed as the snow starts to melt, how didn't the homeowners see it?" And you can't believe there's no part of me that believes they weren't sniffing around that area trying to figure out if there's some evidence, some sign of what could if they had no clue what happened, that they're not over there looking around trying to figure out what could have happened. But yeah,
Yeah.
the whole they were able to reconstruct the entirety of the taillight, found every single shard except what would have broken on in John O'Keefe's driveway, but could only piece together, 4 pieces of the glass. And I think the way it ended with the chalk and the defense making clear that that piece of glass on the bed of the car, just
Mm-hmm.
resting there simply, just resting there, had nothing to do with the actual glass in his hand. I
Mm-hmm.
just can't imagine jurors not thinking, well, yeah, that makes no sense. Where did that glass come from? And why did it come from the same glass that Proctor found
Right.
later?
So
You
yeah,
know,
it does match a piece of glass, a random piece of glass that Proctor found on the street,
right. But
however
not
many days later.
Yeah, but not the glass that was in his hand. So how in the hell did this random piece of glass end up that's unassociated with this case,
Yep.
not part of the taillight, not part of the glass he had in his hand, end up just resting ever so gently on the back of her car?
The bumper. And yeah, then isn't that the one where there was a reflection and there were two stickers and two pieces of glass, and then that was another witness who got caught saying that there were two stickers and two pieces of glass, and there was really only one piece of glass. And
Yeah, and that just goes to prove what we were saying earlier, that come this time later, if you put the picture in front of the expert and say, "Did you find this? And did you find this?" They're going to say, "Yes, yes, yes. Yeah,
Mhm.
I found 2 pieces of glass on that tail light. I mean, on that bumper." Well, oops, no, you didn't. And then we
Right.
saw with Lieutenant, um, what's his name?
Gallagher. Was it
Gallagher.
Gallagher, the tan retired guy who's got nothing to lose now? He testified
Right.
for
Yeah.
days. He's like, "Yeah, I got nothing to lose. I'll say whatever you want. Whatever you want."
I was just going back through his testimony, and he testified because I thought I remembered this, and now I've gone back and listened. He testified that he took possession of the solo cups. He gave them to the criminalist. The criminalist took them, put them into their own container, and then
Mhm.
left with them. And the criminalist said, "I took 2 swabs out of those solo cups and gave them back to the police." He kept asking, "Which person did you hand it back to? Did you hand it back to Proctor?" And she just kept saying, "I think it was a Canton police officer." Well, why in the hell is the lieutenant saying that you took possession of the
Right.
cups and put them in your own? Now you moved them into an appropriate container when you took possession.
And they never tested that blood either. And
Yeah,
she
but
only
he's
swabbed
saying
one of the cups.
I gave them to her, and she's saying I gave them back to them.
But they
So,
they did the job terrifically, those solo cups did. I mean, who knows if somebody's playing beer pong the night before with them, they did the job terrifically. And, no big whoop because it was snowing. It was a really hard crime scene because it was snowing and, snow. And how about why don't they call the actual crime scene services team that actually collects evidence
right,
instead of the CERT team, which looks for missing people? I mean, there's so many things wrong with this. And, the fact that the judge is not allowing the defense to call an expert in police procedure, this guy, Michael Easter, she said you don't need one because the jury should know about proper police procedure. And you can just cross-examine on on police procedure. Like any of these guys are going to admit they did anything wrong? Makes no sense.
No, I mean, this guy, that lieutenant wouldn't admit anything any day of the week. Like you said,
Mm-hmm.
he didn't even recognize Proctor's handwriting.
Right.
Like he's just I was calling him an obstinate asshole. That
Yeah.
that was
Oh,
he was
Buchanan. Yeah.
yeah, and he was always shaking his head no before the question came out. And then a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times the answer ended up being yes, but he's already shaking his head, shaking his head no.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, he was well prepped. He was
he was
well prepped. Jen McCabe was well prepped. She came in looking like a different person,
yeah,
and when I can sit here and say that Jen McCabe was probably the best witness for the Commonwealth so far, that's interesting because this jury has never seen her before. They didn't see her the last trial. They don't know
no.
what she testified to and her behavior and the way she behaved and testified last trial. And some may think she's a normal soccer mom.
Yeah, she's a normal soccer mom
They might think that, even though
for
she lied to
sure.
the FBI, hey, they came at her car to her at her car, she might not have known.
There was one time we were pointing out when she was testifying where she was about to say,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm honest, or let me be honest, and she caught herself and she
Mm-hmm.
stopped mid-sentence, and you're like, okay, so you already, you have been with whoever it is. Bob's like, I think it's Hank that's training her. I'm like, I think it's her cop family members and everyone. She's doing this with everybody involved in this, is like coaching her and going over and structuring her. But she caught herself,
Mm-hmm.
and that's like clear, like, okay, you took cues. We know you look different, you sound different, and you're prepared different. And I agree. I thought that the jury, who, if they didn't see her before and they really don't know anything about the case or
Mm-hmm.
too much about the case, then they're going to think that she sounds like believable.
Yeah, the FBI just coming. The FBI attack, coming up to me in my car is just like, like an ice cream truck. It's like no big deal, like the ice
Yeah.
cream truck.
Yeah. I mean, and then she says, the information I gave the FBI had them then they closed their investigation. I solved everything for them. I gave them everything. And now,
Yeah,
it's fine.
and
So,
isn't it interesting how every witness, when they're asked, if I show you this, would it refresh your recollection? Every single one says, no, wouldn't refresh my recollection. Nope. They've all been prepped to say that,
yes,
right?
that's a huge one that they're
Yeah.
when they're prepped to say it, because that's the only time they ever say it wouldn't refresh my recollection. Grin
Right.
for me says, how much would it cost to get Robert Alessi to sit on a live with Bob for an hour? I would pay just to see Bob blush. That's my Bob blushing and
Oh,
giggle for an hour talking to his crush. Hashtag feed Bob. Bob would sit there just crushing and blushing for if we could get Alessi on a live,
maybe when the trial's over. Can't do it
right?
now.
Z
There's
says
gag order.
McAlbert chats confess more than did I hit him. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, what about that? Are they going to be able to get that in?
Tell him the guy never went in the house. That's already in, right? And then,
I think that one is, but there was
don't
more.
text about it. Don't text about it. We'll find out more tomorrow. They got
That's
that in
already
because
in.
then they
Okay.
talked about going to Lank's house, about Jen McCabe and Carrie Roberts going to Lank's house the next day. And that was also sus because they both testified totally differently about that event,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then Jennifer McCabe got caught in a lie because allegedly they went to Jennifer McCabe's house first, and she didn't testify to that. And Carrie said no, and before they went to 34 Fairview, because then there's location data of that. And Carrie said no, we never went to 34 Fairview. Why would we? It's totally out of the way. We would never do that.
But you did.
Yeah. There were some other family messages though that are not in yet, and I just can't recall
Well, for sure we don't
what
have
they
yet
are.
about buying a gift, and I don't
Oh,
remember
that
that.
was Julie Albert, because that was Julie Albert texting Courtney Proctor, Michael Proctor's wife, tell your brother I want to get him a gift after this is all over. And they could either get that in through Proctor, but Courtney is on the witness list as well.
So I think they're going to probably want to. They
Oh, the one
have
about
to
the
get into
Asian house. Yeah, that's right. Fern's mom. The one about the Asian house. Matt saying, yeah, they're still here, but they're at the Asian house. Oh, yeah. That also the text message about, yeah, if she takes a plea, it's all over. But if she doesn't, it's going to be a whole other episode. I mean, that's
crazy.
that screams consciousness of guilt to me, or you're hiding something to me, or there's something going on here that's just not right.
No, for sure. And I feel like, especially once they tie that into like they were going to get a gift, it's going to, it's going to all carry over. DK says, I felt very accomplished this week when I realized I got my Bachelor of Science degree in only 4 years, not 17 plus. Love you both, but I'm a cupcake. NDD. I have dual citizenship.
That's right. Dual citizenship. Yay, D.
I mean, when I first saw it on Twitter, I was like, I said to Bob, I was like, well, it sounds like this guy was just still pursuing his degree. And then I said, but it took him 15 years, I think is what I said at the time, between getting his associates and getting his bachelor's. Because I was convinced once it was updated again in 2024 that by then, because you had 2018 in one and you had 2024 in one, that he actually had the damn thing. The fact that he still didn't have it.
It was just his hopes and dreams, honestly, his hopes and dreams. Like, I wish I had it, but who's ever going to check? And I think Olivia Lambo is the one who broke that on Twitter, if I'm not mistaken. So props to Olivia. I don't know how she found that out, but there's a lot of people out there who have been doing a lot of armchair detective work.
And the defense is watching, or has someone watching, because they're too busy to be putting that together, on their own.
Right.
They've got to prep for trial. They're not able to dig into like little things like that. And I mean, that is you don't usually get to attack a witness on their education. And, like that was a gift as far as this guy's credibility and showing that he's not honest.
If you would lie about your college degree, what else would you lie about?
Right. Farmer Whitehair went back to the 3-point turn, 3-point movement, John standing with Higgins Jeep. I mean, that is where they're saying, because they said it happened near the driveway or something.
No, they say, according to his reconstruction of this nonsense, he says that the 3-point turn happened on Cedar Crest when they missed the turn, because Karen did say, I think in an interview or two, that they missed the turn and they overshot the turn, and then they had to turn around and then come back to make whatever right or left turn onto Fairview. And that's when the car that Ryan Nagel is in, sees them and yields to them and lets them pull down the street first and pull up behind them.
Yeah.
But the 3-point turn, 1162-1, is specifically 8 minutes before the collision and 11 minutes after the car started. There's some relative timing, except that there's no date or time associated with that, right? So it doesn't register a collision, right? It's just what they're calling like a triggering event. I'm just going to play devil's advocate for a minute, Grace Base, and say, what if when they were backing Karen's car out of the driveway in Dighton, she started the car from inside the house, right? And let it run for 8 minutes to warm up, to get all the snow off it and stuff. And then they pull it out of the driveway, back it out. And then that's another 3-point turn. So or 11 minutes or whatever. You could make that timing fit to another event.
Right.
The only reason that they're able to do it for this one, allegedly, is because they're matching it up with John's GPS data or something.
But if John's in the car well, these would have all been later, but anytime he was in the car where the car did those things, his car his phone would sync up with the car. But yeah, we were saying these 1162 to 1164, like you said earlier, you can do the math, and that's like when the tow truck is there, or when she's at her parents', or when she's at whatever. It's still I felt the first trial that the defense could have done more with those what do they call them? Key cycles, the key cycle thing. And hopefully they'll be able to bring it back again. And I think that this is along the same vein of let's do the timeline again, saying 1164 Dighton, 1163 5 a.m., 1162 12 to 12:42.
Except that Trooper Paul testified in trial 1 that 1164 was when he was testing the car and all of its braking systems and everything outside the Sally port.
Right.
So, I
If
mean,
that's accurate, I don't remember either way, but I know that you're on top of things, Mel. So
that's what I recall, right?
right.
Key
So
cycles have mileage 12,000. What does that say?
what's that?
665 for 1164 and 12.
Where are you?
Oh, I'm in Let's Do the Timeline again. Put another super chat in there. Key
Oh,
cycles have mileage 12,665 for 1164 and 12,629 for. And I remember they showed a picture of her mileage to one of the witnesses, but I can't recall when that picture was taken. If that was taken in the Sallyport when Maureen Hartnett was swabbing it for DNA and stuff. I have to go back and look at that picture again.
yeah, I'm
I
not
think I
sure.
screenshot it.
And
I don't know.
then
They're going to have to explain this a little
Norman
bit
Corey
better.
says you're not missing anything. 1162 triggering event happened while in state custody. If it wasn't tow driver, it was police themselves. Someone drove it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And we don't know how many times they drove it before Trooper Paul did his 1164 testing. They could have driven it in and out of the Sallyport several times.
Right. Kyle's pointing out that Burgess is a professional student, not very good at it. That's his profession.
He's really not.
Pierce says, is Canoni getting Person of the Year award at a gala sponsored by Aperture a conflict of interest? Is that a real thing?
She got a Person of the Year award, but it was at the Norfolk County Bar Association dinner.
And
the
Aperture was
Aperture
there.
No, Aperture, I think, sponsored an event for the Massachusetts Bar Association. So they're two different things. I mean,
Okay.
unless I'm missing something here.
Well, you said one's Boston, one's just the Massachusetts. Is that
Yeah.
what it was?
And
Right.
I don't know if Aperture also sponsored the Norfolk County Bar Association dinner. That was the other night where she got this Person of the Year award, which I saw an invitation for floating around Twitter. And then I actually did go on the website, but because the event happened the day before, I couldn't access the invitation.
All right. So yeah, there's a difference between like the state bar association and then your little smaller county bar association.
Right.
So Mel's saying that
It was two different dinners. Yeah.
2 different dinners. Okay.
But I mean, Aperture, if one of their major clients is working for, DA's offices throughout the country, I don't think it's that unusual that they would sponsor a bar association dinner, because
Right.
that's one of their clients, right? Like
Right.
it's like buying a hole at a golf event and putting your sign up, but that's what they do. So I don't know. I wouldn't read too much into that.
Right. Me neither. Thank you, Letters for Better. Potentially Criminal says it's been depressing to see that the anti-Karen crowd is willing to accept such massive levels of police incompetency and evidentiary issues just to see her convicted. P.S. Melanie has been killing it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, so to believe what they're trying to sell, the Commonwealth, you have to believe that Canton PD is completely incompetent. You have to believe that they are so incompetent that they were wicked smart enough to go get a leaf blower and shoot back at the leaf blower to, blow away and contaminate all the evidence, by the way, because it was blowing gas into whatever, that they could not find two giant pieces of red taillight that were found some, 12 hours later or 10 hours later after another foot and a half of snow fell. That's how incompetent you have to believe the Canton PD is. And
Yeah. And why aren't they finding glass on the upper, like in the same level that he's in, and they're finding other pieces of tail light? I mean, that didn't really make a lot of sense either. I mean, yeah, there's a weight difference, but some of those pieces were pretty big. So it's just
Yeah. It's people, I guess a lot of people don't like to believe that corruption happens, but I come from a place, I come from the land of New York, where we've had our fair share of corruption here, and it happens all the time. And when people say, there's no way that 12 people could keep a secret, I say, have you heard about the Catholic Church scandal? Because hundreds and thousands of children were abused by priests for going back decades and decades and decades, and that secret was kept pretty well by very, very higher ups in a church organization. So
you represented a bunch of plaintiffs and sued the Catholic Church in that, right?
Yeah. And I mean, the way they shuffled those priests around and didn't tell everybody kept their mouth shut. Nobody knows nothing about nothing. It was kept secret for, 50 years, 100 years. So it can happen.
And Laura commented back, sorry, I cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Laura commented about the shoes that we brought up earlier. For her speculation, John had both shoes at the hospital and in the ambulance, and Proctor planted it after he bagged the clothes, hence the clean socks. I mean,
Why
that
would he
would
plant it though? Because everybody who's ever been hit by a car has lost a shoe? Because I know that not to be true. I found that to be really stupid testimony. Not you, Laura, because I love you, but when Buchanan was like, yeah, everybody who's hit by a car loses a shoe. Like, what? What?
but I guess if they were trying to push this is where something happened and stick it right next to the curb, that does help them develop that storyline that he's hit right there
Yeah.
on the curb. But I mean, I get your point. Not like every shoe
Yeah.
comes off, but by placing the shoe there, it definitely confirms where he was standing when he was forced out of his shoe.
Right.
That's if it
Or
didn't fall off when, you know.
right. Maybe the dog got a hold of the shoe and maybe the shoe was all bit up and they had to find a replacement shoe. They had to find a faux shoe to stand in for the other shoe. They had to find a stand-in, like they have
Right.
stand-ins in Hollywood, like a stunt team, and they had to find an exemplar shoe, and then they had to go find a hat, and they, it could have taken a while to find a hat that exactly matched. I don't know. People think that, but why did it take so long
Right. Why
to
did it take
find the hat?
It's the hat
I
was
mean,
like
it's all
so
reasonable
like
doubt.
so it was its location seemed so not near anything
Mhm.
and like way under like
Yeah.
where all the stuff was shoveled. I was like that picture.
It's
I'm like,
windy.
what's going on with this hat?
It was
You know,
windy.
yeah.
And Canton
Selective,
PD is incompetent, so, there's
right.
that. And then, they leave the scene unsecured. Anybody could have been around there. And then even when the CERT team is there, there's like a couple of rando guys like walking around. Maybe they're with the police, maybe they're not. I thought maybe they were with law enforcement, maybe they weren't. Who knows who they were? There should be
Right.
a log of every single officer who arrives at the scene, what time they get there, they sign in, what time they leave. Like, there's none of
I
that
mean, that's
here.
normal. Like that they have that. They keep who came in, like there's somebody typically like your job is to say who shows up when, you
But
know.
guess who's not going to know that? The jury's not going to know that that's what's supposed to happen
Well,
because
no, because we can't have
there's
a
no expert.
right, exactly. You can't have a police expert, even though put the Commonwealth put on Lieutenant Gallagher as their police expert to say we did everything right. Oh
Mhm.
no, you don't have to separate people all the time. Oh no, all the things Judge Canoni said, jurors will understand that. That's common sense. Of course, he told the jury we didn't need to do that. That's not necessary. Don't look here. These are not the droids you're looking for. And
Mhm.
I'm waiting for the defense. I'm like, file a motion or make an argument to have the judge reconsider that ruling. The door has been kicked like, kicked,
Right.
kicked open.
Yep. And
Oh,
maybe we'll see that.
a warrant for that? We would
Yeah.
never seek a warrant for that. That makes no sense. You know,
Dead body on a lawn. How about Brian Albert, who owns the home, works on the fugitive task squad unit or whatever it did at the time, works with a lot of dangerous criminals. How do you know that this guy, perhaps a dangerous criminal, didn't kill John O'Keefe and then go inside and kill everyone in the house? How do you not, as Jen McCabe, how do you not fear for your
worry.
sister's life if
Right.
you allegedly called her twice, she doesn't answer? How do you not run in the house and make sure that everyone's okay? If it was my sister,
I would
that would be
run.
my first reaction. I'd be like, oh, John,
Well,
hey, sorry,
especially if I'm
I wanna make
on
sure everything's
911 and
okay.
I'm kinda walking away from helping at that point anyway, I would have run upstairs on the phone with 911, make sure everyone's okay, tell them what's going on the front lawn, and then run back out.
Yeah.
It's
Something
not
else
like
that's new. Sorry.
go ahead.
Her 507 call to her sister.
Yeah, what do you
That did
do
not
to that?
come up in the first trial.
Mm-mm.
507. She called her to say what?
Right after she hung up with 911 or no, before she hung oh, yeah, 5, that's yeah, before
507,
she
right
found the
after
body.
Karen called her. She called like somebody else, the guy who lives nearby that she thought John, for whatever reason. And then she calls her sister, and it's I forget how long the call was. You guys remember how long the call was at 507 to Coco? Karen's looking for John because it would have been easy to say I called there to see if my sister, if John ever came in the house after I left, to see if John was there sleeping on the couch. That would
Right.
have been an easy call to explain away, but she
Course.
never admitted it. She still denies it. I didn't do that. I didn't make that call.
Those calls
It was
are all
38 seconds. That's a long call. Tom
a long
Beatty, right?
call.
She called Tom Beatty. There had been some original reporting, perhaps, that Colin Albert had called Tom Beatty's daughter, I think, to come pick him up around 12:30 and then said, forget it. Yeah, a 38-second phone call.
That's not nothing.
That's not nothing.
Right.
And why wouldn't she say to Karen, oh, I just called my sister. John's not there.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, that wouldn't be strange. He was supposed to go there. He never showed up there. Did he come back there? Did he go for a
Mhm.
walk and come back? Did something happen? He left and then he got dropped back off there. But no, there was a couple other things she could have explained really easily, but she didn't. If, like if that's what it was, why wouldn't you explain this? And selective memory asks if the defense likely has interns on board helping them. I think for sure they've got
Yeah,
interns.
they do have a lot of interns.
Right. There's got to be people watching social media, maybe doing additional research, someone that they'll say to, go pull this for me, go pull that for me. That's for
Other stuff too. They're reading all the chats in all of the live streams, seeing what the mirror jurors think. You guys are the mirror jurors. So they're reading all the chats because they want to know about people that are watching this for the first time. They want to know what you're thinking, what you want to have explained. And, I'm sure that they're scouring social media too,
for
in
sure.
addition to doing actual research.
So Sarah Witherow thought that the same thing, that the award where Judge Canoni got the award was at the Norfolk County Bar Association, sponsored by Aperture. And what Mel's saying is we're not sure that wasn't two different bar association annual dinners.
Right. That's what I think. That's what I read anyway.
Daniel Faraday, because time slipping and we are lost. Love seeing you two lovely attorneys together.
Oh, that's so
Thank
sweet.
you. Thank you, Brian. Nice. She gave a podcast, a Defense Diaries podcast membership. Brown Eyed Girl says the two best kick-ass women attorneys on YouTube can't wait for the defense to present their case. No, we can't either. So why don't we ask you guys, the chat, and while we continue to go through these stickers, Mel and I were talking earlier about who we think the defense is going to call and who they should call. And if you were listening earlier, what is your thought between, do you start with Proctor? Do you start with ARCA? Or, do you think we start with someone completely different? Jen's Nefarious, there you go. 5.507 call to Coco.
Well done.
Brandy Churchwell pointed out that Bukaki testified he found the TL. So what's TL?
The taillight.
Taillight, sorry, on the lawn. Yet Lally asserted multiple times in front of the jury that he found it on the road.
He did.
So corrupt, feeding the jury false info.
Yeah.
Now,
And this is
we've got this concept that prosecutions are not allowed to present two different theories of a case, two different scenarios in co-defendants cases, for example, or on a retrial. But
right.
we have that here with Lally. Not only is what Jen's mentioning, but Lally said in opening the first trial that all of this happened at 12:45. He said it in
Walking
opening.
it back, and now
And
time
then it
drifts.
changed in that trial. It ultimately became 12:30. Right? Like those were the two times in those trials. I'm like, why is the jury not allowed to be told that that's what they presented? That was their theory, because they should not be allowed to present an ever-changing fluid story. You went to trial once.
Right.
You assured that jury this is when it happened. And I think it's important for the jury to know that those were the changes. This has been what has progressed with their story. They'll tell you whatever the hell they want to. On any given day, they'll interpret the evidence differently, and they'll tell you they have it right. And they've had it wrong since opening trial one.
Right. Just because Jennifer McCabe testified that she saw that Lexus outside at 12:45. Because that lines up with some of her text messages. Is her phone wrong too? Does time drift? I mean, all this time drifting and time shifting, and we're like in the Matrix and it's glitching. It's
right.
Nothing makes sense here.
Nothing.
It's the upside down.
Don't forget, Karen will never be convicted. Love you both. That's Stephanie.
Thanks, Stephanie.
I mean, I hope so. I get nervous because of the jury the first time just discounted ARCA altogether. I
Right.
mean, I think the defense will be able, now that they know that happened, they're going to address it differently so that they can be sure that they have a common sense, everyday way of presenting it so the jury does not think it's anyone associated with Karen Reed, an insurance company, some social media person. It wasn't anybody, who knows, but I'm sure that they have come up with ways to ask those questions
Mm-hmm.
so that it doesn't happen. But it makes me nervous. Jay Coop says a couple of normal moms with Brian's
No,
and
brains,
brains.
brains.
Oh, us, brains and beauty. Thank you for covering.
Oh, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Sweet.
That's nice. We touched on the key cycles. Um, Daniel Faraday, because time slipping and we are lost. What do you both think about him being 24 hours off? And we talked about this earlier.
Yeah, he's an
Not just
idiot.
a little thing. It's not just a little thing.
He's
This is an
sloppy.
important, sloppy. Your literal job, like we said earlier, is to tell us the time and date things happened.
No attention to detail.
No. Couch Drawer says three turn when they left the bar.
Oh,
Yeah,
3-point turn when they left bar? Maybe.
another
She was parked
possibility.
on the street. She could have. That could be possible.
Right. Jay Coop says, how are they going to explain an arm shattered, a tail light in 47 pieces? They can't. No, I agree. They can't. Let me go back
No,
and
it would
see
shatter the arm too.
if you guys all chimed in about what you think about I'm so behind on the regular comments here. What everyone said about who they thought should be called, or maybe they didn't. Maybe they haven't.
Or if you're watching this trial for the first time and you didn't watch trial 1, what are you curious about? Like, what witnesses do you want to hear from that they have talked about that they haven't called? Because it's hard to believe that they're just going to end their case. They haven't brought in, no dog DNA. Or, I mean, are they going to save that for rebuttal? Like, where's the dog DNA expert that, the whole first trial Lally was on, he had the ball the whole time and he was playing defense. It was like that entire first trial was in defense of the Alberts and the McCabe's. And they haven't called anybody that was in the house at 34 Fairview other than Jen McCabe and Sarah Levinson. Last time Lally called everybody who was there and everybody who was at the waterfall.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much to this story that the jury's not hearing about. And because they don't get readbacks, that frightens me too, because people are going to have to rely on their notes about what Jen McCabe said, what Kerry Roberts said, and they're going to be fighting over what their notes say. And they can't come back and say, Your Honor, can you have the court reporter read back Jennifer McCabe's cross-examination? And they just don't do that in Massachusetts. So,
yeah. What did you think about the back pocket of John O'Keefe's pants being ripped or whatever the case may be?
I thought that was like a sign of a struggle. I don't know. It's a clue. I think it would be a clue. It was never brought up. And so some people say they would have cut his back pocket to get his wallet out. I mean, I don't know about that. I think somebody would have mentioned that. One of the
you could see
EMTs,
a pulling in a fight.
Yeah. Or, how dogs can go for your butt sometimes. Maybe that could be. I mean, they never, ever brought it up. I went back and looked at the first trial, and the first trial, when whoever held up the pants held the pants together so that the pocket did not flop down the way it flopped down this time. So,
right. Yeah, that was crazy.
It's all reasonable.
We cranked the AC in the house, and I've been freezing since we've been down here. I'm like, so cold, my nose keeps running.
We had to turn the heat on today. It was so cold here.
Well,
I think air conditioning on last week. It's so bizarre.
Someone had turned the heat on and then it really got a lot warmer. So we really cranked the AC, and now I'm freezing my arse off for the past hour. Scooter's wishing everyone a wonderful White Claw weekend and a happy holiday.
Woohoo.
Alessi never sleeps. I believe these ladies, Allie and Mel.
Oh, thank you, Marissa.
I love these ladies. Thank you. We love you too. We love you too. Classic Overthinker, Aperture Platinum sponsor for Massachusetts Bar Association dinner.
Yeah,
that's what Mel's saying. So thanks for confirming.
Probably get a lot of business from
them. Massachusetts, not Norfolk. Lita Randolph says defense must clarify, why did Jen say they flipped the body to 911? Where are John's socks? Where did Higgins' Jeep slash plow go when everyone pulled up to the house? He said he parked with the back next to the mailbox. Yeah, I
Right.
mean, these are definite, like the whole we flip the body. I it's just
Yeah. She says
like
it in the call, right? She says they just flipped him over. They just flipped him over. So I don't know if it means they flipped him over from back, from face down to face up, or they flipped him over like they were trying, like maybe they thought he was choking on vomit because there was like vomit in his mouth and they tried to like roll him on his side and then flipped him back onto his back. Like, I just don't know what that means. And nobody asked Jennifer McCabe that question either.
right.
Maybe
Yeah.
because it's better to be mysterious. If you don't know what she's going to say, you can just bring that up later.
My husband heard me complaining.
Oh, brought you a sweater.
He's so
Oh,
sweet.
so nice.
Come join us, babe.
We'll see.
We'll see, he says.
Yeah, because I'm gonna have to jump soon because
Mel's got to jump
one of the
soon.
kids is cooking dinner, and I can't. Somebody wants to cook me dinner, I'm taking it.
You can whenever you're
Taking it.
ready, you jump. You jump. What did anyone comment in the regular comments about what you asked, if it's their first trial? I'm trying to see.
Okay.
Mandy, if you see anything, star it. And Mel, if you see anything, just
Okay.
go ahead and say it. Albert Norda says the first 30 seconds, the Sallyport doorway when the SUV drives in proves splicing.
Oh yeah.
Rear
Oh, yeah.
doorway is night, while front doorway is daytime with the wind coming in.
Yeah. So much of that video is altered that it's not even funny.
It's
There's
not
ghosts
even
coming in and
funny.
out of the video.
I don't understand why Judge Canoni didn't say, if there is video that you
Mhm.
produced, sorry, you have to have produced it either to a court in a courtroom or to another lawyer before this case.
Mhm.
Before, because them coming in being like, here's another one we found.
Right.
How do we know you didn't just invert that one? If it's easy, if you inverted the first, how the hell do we know you didn't invert the second? I would have expected the
Mhm.
judge to say, I want to see how long was this going on and show me proof of the repair, right?
Yep.
Of a repair, for God's sakes, but of one case where you produced another inverted video to opposing counsel in a case, to anyone,
Mhm.
had to play it. I mean, if it was like that, there had to have been other cases where you're in court and you say, Your Honor, sorry, we had an inverted camera issue.
Right.
Show me one other time that this was produced to somebody.
Yeah. Great point.
It's
Great
like
point.
so many, like the snow was blowing in. I remember like that part of it too. Like when it was like the daylight, it was like, oh, this is where they said that they were like in, but there was already snow. There was
Mhm.
already snow in
Right.
the
Yeah.
Sallyport
And it was like the perfect outline of her
of
car.
the car.
And that Sallyport is supposed to be heated. So of course it was her car. And then they backed it out and then they backed it back in. And then there's, all of a sudden surfaced video of the rear tail light of her car outside the Sallyport coming in. And of course that tail light is real blurry, and the screenshots of the wellness check and the tail light, you can't see anything in those. It's just ridiculous the way they're highlighting the look what it looks like getting on the tow truck. Again, it could be altered. There's no metadata. We know nothing. We don't know how authentic any of this stuff is because apparently it just doesn't matter
Right.
in this courtroom. It just doesn't matter. You would never get that stuff into evidence in New York without chain of custody and authenticity and being able to. I mean, the fact that inverted video came in during the first trial, and Yuri Buchanan said, "Yeah, that's a fair and accurate representation of the Sallyport video." And then it wasn't until cross that it was pointed out, and he's like, "Oh yeah, it's like it's like a mirror, like everything's backwards, but it's like it's still the same."
Right. It that doesn't matter. But I did just testify not only that it was true and accurate, but that no one touched or came near the passenger side of the taillight. I mean, that's what he said. So you didn't
Yep.
only say it's true and accurate. Lally specifically asked, and did anyone come near or
Mhm.
touch? Compound question, whatever, come near or touch? And
Yep.
he said no. He said no. So did you know it was inverted? Because you didn't seem all that surprised when the defense came out. You were like, oh, wait a minute. You're right. You knew it was inverted and you
Mhm.
testified like that anyway. Nicole Kelly says, you think they're going to show from 34 Fairview to One Meadow? It takes 7 minutes on a good day. Absolutely. There's no.
Well, Jennifer McCabe testified it took 10 minutes to get from Fairview to One Meadows. She's already testified to that. It took 10 minutes. So it's a 10-minute drive. You can use it. Use it. She said it already.
Yep. Miles Selena said, I'm living for this live. I'm a big fan of you both. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Salty Sleuth in the chat says, I need to hear from Brian Higgins and Albert. Matt McCabe. I didn't watch the first trial, the crash reconstruction experts. That's good. Yeah, because they read the text messages of Brian Higgins, right? You're hot. And he's like, I'm not. And then like, maybe they want to see what this guy looks like. And they're going to be like, there's no way Karen Reed really wanted to be with that guy. Okay, now we get it.
I mean, I think the fact that Higgins destroyed and deleted and on a, was it Army or Navy base, like threw his phone into different garbage cans. I mean, I think that's important and compelling. Is it worth calling him? Because he was very good at more throwing himself on the sword and being like, I was wrong and I shouldn't have done that. But I never meant this and I didn't mean that. Like, I don't know. I guess that's
Brian Albert and Brian Higgins both destroying their cell phones on the same exact day and getting all new telephone numbers and new carriers, by the way, too. It wasn't just like they destroyed the phone and kept their same phone number. It's like they destroyed their phones, got new phone numbers, got new carriers. So
and they both say butt calls for all their calls.
Yeah, the butt dials back and forth.
The sex
one's like 11 seconds.
The sex butt answer.
Yeah, all the denials of that. So many shenanigans.
Yeah, that was crazy. Glamour Suze also says it was the Massachusetts Association dinner was 5/8 and the Norfolk was 5/21. Yep, two different ones. And it sounds like from what everyone's saying and what Mel says is that Aperture sponsored the Massachusetts one, not the the Norfolk one. No Court Tuesday. I'm going crazy.
Until Tuesday, I know, and it was intentional. It gives Judson Welchure 5 more days to do his prep and all of his extra experiments that he allegedly needs to do now, which is insane. That he's going to be allowed to get 2 bites at the apple and then come back. And
I don't understand why the defense didn't at least ask for. They needed to ask for dismissal or a mistrial with prejudice on the Commonwealth. But when all that fails and she's like, what else? All right, if they're going to be allowed to recall Welchure, and that's a different issue than the time change, but on the defense's new evidence, that they need a surreply.
Yeah,
they should get it. That's for sure.
Right.
4 of the defense interns graduated today. One was
congratulations. Oh, congratulations. Yeah, I think they were from Boston College and Harvard, and yeah.
See,
what a great trial to work on, a great experience.
They can't call Lally, I don't think, to the stand and ask that, but I think that they should be able to demand that the court take judicial notice of it and tell the jury it is a stipulation or something. That the court takes judicial notice that in at an earlier time, I mean, they don't want to say first trial, but that the state, they almost need to for that the Commonwealth said to another jury.
I think they're going to be able to point out in a different way that the timeline has been shifting and shifting and shifting, and now time drifts, and now it's 30 seconds later than they said at the beginning of this trial because of Shannon Burgess's, the guy who lied about his college degree, says time shifts, and based on Ian Whiffet, they can't call Lally, but they can get it in a different way. Had they had any evidentiary hearings on some of these motions, they would have been able to call Lally, and I think that's what should have happened. Especially with the motion to dismiss and all of this video and this resurfacing video. And
yes.
I don't know if you read the decision on that, but the judge blamed everything on Proctor on the motion to dismiss. She said, Proctor's the one. He hid the video in a drawer somewhere.
He's the Commonwealth.
Says who? But says who? Where's she even getting this from?
That's true.
It's not even like Brennan didn't say that Proctor did it. She's just putting it out there. So
right. But it's still the Commonwealth.
Yes. His knowledge is imputed to them. And had Karen Reed had all of this video at the first trial, could there have been more reasonable doubt? Could she have been acquitted, even though maybe she was acquitted on 2 counts? And the judge says, no prejudice, because you know what? She gets a new trial. She gets a new trial. No big whoop.
Yeah, that was crazy. Now, Ashley's asking about when did John vomit if he died instantly when hit. Now, this vomiting thing, we've never heard any actual evidence that he vomited, right? It's all
They
rumor
said,
and
well, one
speculation.
of the first responders did say that he had vomit in his throat. And that can
Oh,
also
really?
happen from a massive head injury. And, you can have seizures and you can start vomiting. That would definitely happen. There was also vomit in his boxer shorts, and it hasn't been
No,
explained, but I think
that's
maybe one of the defense experts will explain
yeah,
it.
because in his boxer shorts would mean he was standing at some point when he vomited.
Yeah, but also look at all the blood down the front of his shirt and his pants. I mean, if
Yeah.
the head injury was to the back of his head, and that's the only real, aside from the arm injuries that were bleeding, how was there blood all down the front of his shirt?
No,
Andrea Burkhart, who's a boxer, has said that's the traditional, like somebody pops you in the nose and your nose gushes blood all down. She's like, I've seen that blood pattern a million times. It was
right.
never brought up if he had a fractured nose. I've wanted to know this since the beginning.
I see Bob hiding back there. You wanna ask Mel a question before she's gotta go? Come join us.
Yeah, I was gonna
Hi.
pop in. Hey, what's up, Mel?
Hi, how are you guys?
Awesome. I wanted to congratulate you on a
Oh,
massive
yes.
YouTube
you.
milestone, 100,000 subs. Congratulations. That is amazing.
Thank you so much. You guys will be
We're
there
so
soon.
proud of
You'll be
you.
there soon. And then we'll have the silver plaques together.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's such a major accomplishment.
Sniggle,
Like, if you think about it, it's like you could fill up Wrigley Field 3 times.
That's
So,
pretty cool.
like, I always think about like
Pretty
how
cool.
many people that is in terms of just how many people love you. So congratulations. It's a massive,
Oh, thank
well
you guys.
earned, well earned, Mel. So we're so happy for you. So thank you for taking time on this holiday weekend to hang with us for a bit.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask specifically, I didn't think Dr. Wolf, the real, spelled like the real one, was it all in any way, shape, or form a detriment to the defense. As a matter of fact, I thought ultimately that his testimony was incredibly beneficial to the defense, not the Commonwealth, because
That's the brain surgeon, right?
he's a brain surgeon. Because he essentially said, and I saw it, and Mel, I know that you try not to get on the Twitters, but I'm like always on there, so I can always see what the antis are saying. So I'm always checking the pulse as soon as
Right. Yeah.
guy like that comes on. So, I mean, it was clear to me that what he was saying is that he thought it was a slip and fall. I mean, like, I have no other way.
He
Like,
said drunk people fall back and hit their
Right.
heads.
he says, I was
Drunk
up in
people.
Minnesota for years. He's like, you wouldn't believe how many people I dealt with that were intoxicated that slipped and fell and hit their head. And that's the exact injury they had. But he added to that. And he was talking about the speed was from the gravity from the fall. Like he said nothing at all to me that helped the Commonwealth at all. Am I missing something from that guy?
No, because he didn't say that. He said nothing about a car accident. And they have had not one medical witness say that there's any injuries related to a car accident. The Irene Squirty Bello said, I looked for pedestrian injuries. I couldn't find any. There weren't any. But she did say in her autopsy, there are no signs that are consistent with a fight, which is very unusual. I don't know if that was brought up in this trial. I'm conflating like the two trials. It's hard to remember what happened when.
Hard not to.
But he did not say anything about a car accident. He said that he believes that this happened from a fall backwards.
Right.
It could have been anywhere. A fall backwards where? In the front yard. I mean, if somebody punched you in the front of the face, right? If somebody punched you in the eye, because remember, he had fractured orbits too, which are your eye sockets, right? And didn't he have other fractured bones in the front of his face and the front of his skull and here, which is classic, again, a boxing injury, a right hook, a left hook. The massive head wound, remember massive head wound, Harry, on Saturday Night Live? That just reminds me of the massive head wound on the back of his head could have been from falling on anything. He could have fallen in the basement. He could have fallen on top of that weight rack. That would have caused that exact size laceration on the back of his head. He could have fallen on the concrete patio around the pool after perhaps the dog knocked him over from the front. Let's say, I don't know if the dog is 80 pounds or whatever, comes charging at you to protect its owner, as German Shepherds do. And we'll hear that probably from Garrett Wing, and attacks your arm. And then you're pulling your arm backwards and the dog the force of just the dog. Let's just say nobody else was even involved. You're pulling your arm back, the dog is pulling, and you slam your head backwards on that pool patio. That could happen too. You know,
I mean,
there could have
even in the
been
first trial, they didn't explain,
right.
even with Trooper Paul, they never explained how do you think the taillight made those marks?
Right.
Because it wasn't broken when she first made contact. That's what you're saying. You guys are saying it wasn't broken. So a flat surface, uncut. Then what? Where is the explode? I just did their concept. They never explained how the taillight exploded and then scratched him all at the same time.
It's like magic.
Beyond that, I've, unless I'm wrong, have they had anybody during this second trial in any way, shape, or form try to explain the injuries on the arm at all? Did I miss that?
No.
That's like a serious question. I'm not trying
because
to
in the first trial, remember, they had the dog DNA expert person come in and they talked about swabbing the clothing and sending the DNA, and they said no dog DNA because they were on the defense the whole entire time. They haven't said anything about the arm. I think that's what Welchure is going to testify to. That's going to have to be part of his accident reconstruction theory about how these injuries happen. But again, he's not a medical expert. He's not a doctor. How is he allowed to testify about the causation of the injuries?
They're putting in the thing that I love.
And he relied on all the statements. He relied on all the statements of the witnesses. How is that? You're reconstructing something based on what someone else said that we don't think is, there's no evidence happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where the cars were.
I was just about to say, and that's what I loved about the Burgess cross, because that served two purposes. The way that Bob was able to do that, not only did he destroy that guy's credibility, he also destroyed the credibility of Aperture, which is exactly who is putting Welchure on the stand.
Right.
So it was like a twofer, because you are paying a company like Aperture, who is in the business of providing lawyers, expert witnesses. One of the things that you're paying them for is for them to vet these people as expert witnesses.
Exactly.
And when they didn't do that, he absolutely destroyed the credibility of not only Burgess, but he destroyed the credibility of Aperture. I mean, how can you trust a company that's not doing even the most basic background on people that they're hiring and then pushing out to the public in cases that matter, whether it be
then changing your website.
Right.
I mean, yeah, I'm not going to deny I definitely have a lawyer crush on Bob. Like the guy's.
I heard. Did you see the picture of him and Will the Glare and the gun show? The gun show. Have you seen? Do you know he's like 60? Somebody said he was 67. I don't know if that's true, but he's
I think it's true. He is absolutely jacked.
He looks like a child.
I went on with Will, and Will was telling me a story. He's like, yeah, like I got to go eat lunch with those guys, and I was sitting there, and I was talking to Bob, and like all of a sudden he pulls out this little baggie full of cereal in a Ziploc baggie. He opens it up, and then he pours some milk out of it, and he just eats the cereal out of this little baggie. He's like, because he was asking him how he's in such great shape at 67. I mean, like, I'm 55, and I try to keep myself in pretty decent shape, and I'm like, man, whatever Bob's doing, that's what I want to do. I mean, you would never guess that guy is 67 years old. He looks amazing, and he's so sharp mentally. And what you love about him going into the defense's case in chief is that he is going to be able to put such beautiful direct examinations specifically of Wolf and Rensler, so that what they are saying, which is so important, it's so important. It is going to be a thing of beauty. And it like, to me, and I know you guys talked about it early, I think you start with either Proctor or Wolf, and then you bookend it with Rensler. The reason I think Wolf makes more sense in the front, maybe he goes in front of Proctor, is because he's dealing with the taillight. He's the guy who built the pneumatic cannon. He's the guy who's like looking at whether or not that vehicle was involved in a pedestrian strike or not. And then you follow him up with saying, no, it in my estimation, it was not involved in a motor vehicle pedestrian strike. And then you put Proctor on, because then you just destroy that guy. And then it takes the jury down that path where you've got, all right, this guy who's incredibly credible is a witness, who's super educated, who Brennan's not going, like, if Brennan tries to pull the shit that he pulled during the voir dire with Wolf, I'd pay money for him to do it, because Wolf handled that entire thing like a champ.
Oh, he did.
I mean,
He smiled through it. He smiled through the whole thing.
Hank just could not get under his skin, you know, and it was beautiful to see. And I think that Hank was taking the opportunity during that voir dire to see if he'd be able to get under his skin. Like, I think he came at him as hard as he did because he was trying to see if he could get him to crack, because we all know Hank is shitting his pants.
Oh my God, I know
about those two guys. I mean, nobody fights that hard, and all of us know. I mean,
Your Honor, I don't want to stop the defense from putting on these witnesses, but
I
could
don't
you
want
please,
the defense to be able to not put on a
but
defense.
please, for the love of God, bar them.
What I mean, he is so full of
I
shit.
have no problem with them. I welcome them. I welcome their testimony. I welcome it.
I'm all about the Sixth Amendment right to a fair trial for a defense. You know, it's like, he's so full of shit. He's so
Are you sitting on
transparent.
yoga balls for real? That's a great
Oh
idea.
my God. So like, and I think that you just end it with Rensselaer, because it'll
Yeah, you bookend them. That's what I was thinking
like,
too when you brought that up.
You've got, all right, look, this guy is saying, the jury is gonna be saying, all right, this guy is saying that there's no way that the taillight explodes like that if John O'Keefe was hit the way that they're saying he was hit. Right. Like there was, so that leaves them wondering, well, okay.
Like, we
so
even built a cannon and it was awesome.
It's awesome. So they're
awesome.
How does and you know, the thing that drives me nuts about this case is the fact that in terms of where the evidence was located, I mean, the fact of the matter is none of us sitting here have any idea where they found that taillight in that yard.
No,
it's insane.
We don't know where the body was.
I know.
We don't know where the body was. This is a dead fellow police officer. Okay. Everyone knows. Officer down. Everything stops. Everyone comes to the scene. They didn't want that. They didn't want that.
There's a guy.
1,000-foot pole. They didn't want that. And so you've got this situation where you're going to be able to put Wolf on. He's going to say, look, I can't tell you exactly what happened, but what I can tell you did not happen is that John O'Keefe was not hit by that 6,000-pound vehicle, and that taillight did not shatter from any impact on a human being. That I can say with, you know, within a reasonable degree of scientific certainty. There's that. So then the jury's sitting with that. Then you bring on Proctor, because they've planted all the seeds that they could during the, you know, the Commonwealth's case in chief. And Mel, you were right. I mean, Lally put on that rebuttal case. It was, you know, it was weird. I had never really seen it. Like that's what you typically see in rebuttal. He was trying to get in front of everything the defense was going to be doing in terms of getting their third-party culprit / Bowden defense out there, that narrative out there. So like Lally's big idea was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to call all these people during my case in chief. I'm going to get in front of it. Problem was he didn't prep any of them. He didn't protect any of them, and he just let them all get like lambasted. So, I mean, how many people, or who do you think, if they're gonna trim the fat from the people inside that house, who is mandatory, do you feel that they call, if anybody?
I don't know. I mean, it's really going to have to, so much of this is going to depend on Welchure's testimony. I mean, he has to be the guy putting all the pieces together. I mean, excuse the pun, but I guess it fits. Because we still haven't heard that John O'Keefe died from a car accident. We still really don't even know the cause of death. I mean, even the medical examiner said that those, what she thought was hypothermia, those Wisniewski spots, could have been from heavy drinking.
Yeah.
Right? It might not have been hypothermia. So now there's questions about this. Nobody has said there's a car accident. This has to be the guy. And I think you're right. Bring Welchure on right away. I mean, bring Wolf on right away to just discount everything that guy said. Yep. Right? Because you don't want too much time to go by. You don't want too much air to happen, because right now they've got 5 days off this jury. How much are they going to remember? Right. Like they probably don't even remember Jen McCabe's testimony. They don't get readbacks. So they're relying on their notes.
She's a distant memory, and they have no context for her at all in terms of something going on in that house. You know what I'm saying?
That's the thing.
Her
Right.
heartbeat
They could
was
believe
static,
her.
though.
She could have been like a real soccer mom. They didn't see her first trial testimony, so they don't know what we know and how different she was and how different she comes across now. And do they need Proctor? I think they need Proctor. You want Proctor. Proctor's
Gotta
the
put
evil
Proctor on.
villain of this whole entire thing. He
You
got
have to.
fired because of his bias in this case. He never should have been investigating it. And I think you need Lank. Lank is the guy who has been inserting himself in Albert family business for decades. He's their fixer. He's the Ray Donovan of the Albert family. And he's the guy that they let in first thing in the morning. He's the only one they would let in. Like the other guy was only allowed in the foyer and he was allowed in. But nobody went in the basement. Nobody even heard the dog. They may remember that Jen McCabe said the dog wasn't there.
Right.
So I think you need Lank. Do you need Higgins? Maybe, because if Karen's texting this guy like, you're hot, and Higgins is in the bar doing the thing, the grab ass thing, like it gives Higgins a motive, right? It gives Higgins a motive to want to come after John if he's trying to go after his girl. There's no bro code apparently with this guy. He's going right after his friend's girl.
Right.
I don't think he comes across it comes across as like wimpy from like the cartoon, like I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. Like there's no way that anybody's going to believe in any world that Karen Reed really was interested in this guy and thought he was hot, right?
Right.
So
like
I
they're
think
not going from John to Higgy. Like that's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I mean, like just completely objectively, if you're the jurors and if you've seen a picture of John when he's in his prime and when him and Karen are together, he sees he's in pretty good shape. He's a good looking guy. And then, she's clearly not going to downgrade from John to Higgy, clearly. So like, cause my whole thing, when they put the text messages in the first trial, like that was the thing that for me that clicked more than anything. So I was a little surprised in opening when Alan kind of leaned into the concept that they were not arguing in the car when John got out. And I can understand why they said that, but I had loved the concept of John somehow seeing the text from Higgins and him being like to Karen, like, what the fuck is this?
Right.
He's buzzed. He's a Boston guy. He's a cop. Boston guys like to fight. Like I've got Southie friends. They like to fight. They're fighting people, so it's like they're Irish.
Right.
So, and I could say that because I'm a quarter Irish. So, but you see that text, you can see a world in which John becomes furious and goes into that house hot and goes right after Brian Higgins. So, I mean, to me, that just kind of built in the perfect kind of scenario wherein you could see John saying, I'm going to find that guy and I'm going to go see why he's hitting on my girl. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't give a shit what's going on with John and Karen leading up to that event. When you're drunk and you got another dude that's pretending like he's your buddy hitting on your girl, you're going to be pissed. I don't care what the status of the relationship is. You know what I'm saying? Whether they're on the rocks or not. It's like, so I don't know. I don't know how they're going to play that out. But yeah, I think the one question that I want to ask you before we let you go, because I know we're eating into your holiday weekend here. Okay. Do you think, and then I don't know if Allie has a question. So like I've had this question posed to Mark on both the times he's come on over here, because I keep trying to get him to like, look, as defense attorneys, we never want to put our client on, right?
Right.
Stupid fucking clips that Hank keeps putting
I know.
on.
They're bad.
They have no context, that are like don't mean anything. He's just playing them randomly. They're not connected to
right.
Have they, in your mind, potentially forced a situation where and I'm going to allow you to take in the strength of the case, because that's absolutely what you have to do if you're an attorney. You're like, all right, their case sucked. There's no way I'm putting you on. So include that in your analysis. But do you think there's any way Karen takes a stand?
I mean, it's up to her, right? At the end of the day, it's all her decision. And she's gonna, I mean, she has great faith in her attorney. So she's gonna believe, she's gonna do whatever they tell her to do. Are they going to be able to play any clips to kind of give context to those other clips that were already played? Because there's conflicting information about whether they'll be able to do that. Because there was one really good interview that she did with Ted Daniel where they were riding in a car, and she was much more humanized in that clip. You know, she was much more likable, for lack of a better term. Every clip that they're choosing to play has her, you know, mocking Peggy O'Keefe, and she doesn't come across as a likable person. And there is one interview with Ted Daniel that is very likable. And now that I think about it, I don't know that they'll even be able to use it. The defense will, right?
Well,
I don't know if they would be able to do that
either.
I think the defense will be able to use any clips that put directly into context another clip that they can argue was misleading, confusing, misrepresented, the, you know, whatever the case may be. But I don't think there's any basis for them to put in a totally unrelated clip.
self-serving,
Right. But
self-serving clip.
even if it's self-serving, if it puts it into context under the completeness doctrine, I think it should get in. If he like stopped something in a half a sentence in and the rest of that sentence explains it, or even another section relates directly to that same statement or the context of it, whatever it is, I don't see how that they should be able to keep that out. I don't think, because Brennan argued, because the Judge Canoni said at some point, well, you're going to have, to the defense, you're going to have your chance to put in the other portions of these clips. And he's like, these are self-serving clips. That's never going to happen. Well, I think yes and no. I think if it is clarifying something that he put in that under the completeness doctrine, that legally it should be able to get in.
That would be a better option. I don't think
it would be a better option, because
I don't think she should
my
take the stand
greatest
at all.
fear is that they have exactly done what you've said, is that they've made Karen unlikable. And that, in a close case, if the jury's considering it to be a close case, if they're on the fence in terms of guilt or innocence, whether they're going to go guilty, not guilty. I mean, Allie and I have just experienced it, where their dislike for our client is the thing that flipped them over to guilty, which is fucking absurd, obviously. But we're dealing with normal people. We're dealing with jurors, and it can be that simple. You know, I mean, it's like those two things. It's like, do you hate the defendant themselves if they got on the stand and testified, or which side do I like better? Like which set of
which lawyers do I like better? A lot of the time, it's sad to say, but it's true.
It's so
you
true.
Know, jury hates Hank Brennan. They might just be like, I'm not voting for him. I hate that guy.
Yeah,
and vice versa.
I think, I
don't think anything good I don't think anything good can come from putting her on the stand. I don't think anything, because like the people in the first trial, there were some jurors who said, you know, I think there was one juror who got booted for like talking about her facial expressions, and she's always looking at her family, and she's always making these nasty expressions, and people on Twitter have already want to see her hung in town square for her facial expressions, and she doesn't cry, and she does this too much, and she doesn't do that enough, and you know, she's not sad enough, and she's too loud, and she, you know, I don't think that anything good can come of it, because I think that Hank Brennan would know how to push her buttons, and I don't think I would handle.
She's kind of like
I would attack him.
She's not a good actress. She's kind of like
she's like me. I say I have subtitles on my face. I have subtitles on I can't help it, you know, and she can't either. And I think she's toned it down a lot. And also it helps that the camera's not focusing on her a lot during the trial, because that's horrible. And she doesn't look back at her parents as much as she used to. But if they don't like her, they're just going to not like her. And I don't think putting her on the stand is going to make her more likable. I think it can only work against her, especially with her admissions of, you know, having 9 drinks. They're going to hammer that down. And then people are going to think, well, she was drunk, so she must have did it, like some of the jurors from the first trial thought. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. A lot, you know, some people come in to sit on a jury and they're like, well, if the person's here, they must be guilty. I mean, you know, that's how people think.
100%. I mean, it's like,
I mean, why would they prosecute her again if she's not guilty? Of course she's guilty. So
it's like one of the first questions that Allie would always ask in voir dire when we're trying to pick a jury is like, look, just by way of the fact that this person has been arrested for something, does that lead you to conclude that they've done something wrong? Like, so you're starting off shoving the proposition of innocent until proven guilty completely to the side, and you're already walking in that room. Well, they've been arrested, so they did some shit wrong. So you're starting already, if you're the defense, from behind, right? And you're climbing up that long hill, that long high hill, where we have no burden. but that's just
Right.
not how it really works in this world.
Right.
We all know that. So,
And can't they cover that in closing? You know, you don't have to like Karen Reed. You don't have to like Karen Reed. Did she say some things in some interviews that you might have found offensive? You know,
yes.
did she imitate her not quite mother-in-law in a way? And listen, when Peggy O'Keefe took the stand, there you could tell that she hates Karen Reed. I mean, there was no love lost there. So
No.
I don't find that clip to be as damaging as some people think. But you can handle it. You know, you don't need to like her. But
Right.
the science and the medicine shows you what happened, and it was not a car accident. So when you go back there and you're thinking of all the different ways that this could have happened, that's reasonable doubt. And you have heard from all of these witnesses, and even the medical experts for the Commonwealth couldn't tell you that John O'Keefe was hit by a car. He just wasn't, because physics and medicine. And you don't need to like her, but she didn't do this. You know, I think there's ways, because I think putting her on the stand is way too risky.
It's scary.
What do you think?
I agree with you. I think it's like, I think at the end of the day, they're going to make whatever final determination, because we do that all the time. We're like, all right, let's see how the state's case in chief goes. And then, you know, we'll advise you whether or not we think we have to put you on the stand. We don't want to put you on the stand, because I think that that's a general proposition. You're almost never going to help yourself when you're putting the defendant on the stand, even if they're stone cold innocent, because there's so many ways that it can go wrong.
Right.
You know, you say something that just turns the jury off, and they're like, you know, they get a look, they side eye you, and they're like, this fucking guy, you know what I mean? So it's such a dangerous proposition that I think that ultimately Welchure, who is at this point, you're absolutely right. He is their case. He is the guy that they're relying on to put the entire case together, because what I've seen is a mishmash wherein they have proven nothing at all.
Right.
You know, it's like you said, and I'm like, when are they going to talk about John getting hit by the car? is that ever going to come? It's like, we see you putting pieces of taillight together. When are you going to put this whole thing together? And like, I have no idea if he's that guy. Like, he may come up there and maybe he just wows the shit out of the jury, and he's like, wow, that guy was really new as shit. So then, you know, you're from the defense side, you're like, all right, well, thank God we have Wolf and Rensler, because they're going to eat that guy for lunch. And then but I think that it kind of lays there. But, you know, when you have the risk of the fact that there's nothing that she can really do to help herself, because I agree, I think Hank will be able to push her buttons. I think she'll, you know, because Karen, it's like you said, like, she's just an expressive person. Like, you just wears her instead of she wears her feelings on her sleeve, she wears them on her face. You know, everything that she's feeling and thinking, you see it.
Who can blame her?
And that will all just like work against her in a way that I think that there's nothing to be gained. Mark's, he's like, there's no fucking way. I'm never putting her on the stand. I'm like, I know, man, but I'm like, these clips make her so. Yeah, it's just like it's.
All right, let me ask Mel this last question of Shannon. It's a quick one, and then we'll see if she's got any final words. If it ends in a mistrial, do you think the Commonwealth will try again? Thanks, Shannon. And
it depends, because Michael Marcy is up for re-election, I think, 2026, you guys. So a year away. I don't think he's going to get reelected. So
go to the voting booths, people. People are always like, what can we do?
Vote.
There's a shit out of office.
Would the new DA want to continue with this mess of a trial? I mean, the public outcry on both sides are going to come at them. People in Massachusetts have been tried at least 3 and 4 times after mistrial, so it's not uncommon there. I don't know. They're in it so deep that I don't think that they could ever let it go. It's like a dog with a bone. Like, they're never going to let this go. But if a new DA is elected, maybe they'll drop it, like any other honorable prosecutor would have never prosecuted this case to begin with. How did we even get here?
I mean, at some point in a case like this, there's got to be somebody smart enough to say, you know what? Just the fact is, let's call it what it is. That was a shit investigation. The evidence is what it is, and we're never going to be able to prove that she hit him. You know, I mean, isn't there that one person with common sense that is, and you're right, until Morrissey's gone, maybe that person does exist, but they just can't make any headway with that guy. Yeah. Because, I mean, this could be a case that theoretically they could try in perpetuity. We're going to try this case 50 times, and you know what? They're never.
She runs out of money or donations or, free lawyers.
Right. I mean, it's so.
All right, Mel, we'll give you the floor. What else you want to say so you can
Oh, I'm so happy to be here with you guys. This was so much fun. I wish you would have come to Vegas with us, but next time, because they're going to do it again. They're going to do it again.
Yes.
They're gonna do it
Hey, what about San Francisco for the 60th? Is that on your radar?
Yeah, I have something else going on that weekend, and it's like really the one time. First of all, I can't even believe the 50th felt like it was just last year, but
I know.
it's
And
already
they were
been 2
done.
years.
Remember, they were done. We're done.
Yes.
This is it.
Oh yeah, I went to the final shows too. The final shows, I've been to that final shows like 5 times. And I
Right.
went to the 50th, which was in Chicago, which was
Right.
right near you guys.
Yep.
There.
So I hope that they announce another residency at Vegas, and I'll do that. So San Francisco is still kind of up in the air for me, and I don't really know if I want to go to Golden Gate Park. Is it going to be like a big thing? No seating, no pit,
Probably.
We can't get up to the rail alley. Like, what's the point? Like, I
Savages,
don't want to
right?
be like 7,000 deep. I don't do that. I don't do that. I go where I can, move freely about the cabin and
Yeah.
up to the rail.
Yeah.
That's my thing. So thank you for that.
Right. If you're not on the rail, you just might as well be by the soundboard
Stay home.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Space to move.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. But I don't want to be like, is Golden Gate Park like, it's not a venue, is it? Is it like it's like Central Park?
I think that they're going to have to erect a stage there. Like, I don't believe that there's like a permanent stage there.
There's no seating or anything. It's just
I don't
kind of
think
like
so.
bring a blanket and I don't know.
Giant field.
Oh.
Like,
When I went to the final shows, that was in San Francisco too, but it was at the baseball stadium.
right.
Sounds like
At,
my back will hurt
I forget
afterwards.
the name of the venue. I forget the name.
Standing
of
on
the
a
venue.
hill.
It used to be Candlestick.
Yeah,
Whatever-
that was fun.
Whatever giant stadium.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
But I
It's-
can't believe we're doing this again. I can't believe that the jury now has 5 days off. And the whole reason they did that, in my opinion, was because they could have brought Welcher in on Thursday,
Yep.
but then they would have had 4 days off, and he wouldn't have been able to been prepped
Exactly.
by Brennan over the weekend. And
Exactly, because he would have only been an hour in, and he's their guy. Like, he's going to by far be the longest direct. that we've
they're spending the
seen.
whole weekend together, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh,
Right?
Sleeves they
For
are.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, he would have had no time because he's busy. He's busy handling every witness except the couple that Lally handles, so he
That's
wouldn't have had a chance to do it.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. All right.
All right, Mel, we love you. Are you have any
thank you.
fun plans for the weekend? Relaxing?
The weather, it's like the weather stinks right now. If the sun comes out, it'll be much better. But right now there's nothing. It's like rainy and cold here.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
chilly but sunny, but we've got a full weekend of
Right.
12-year-old softball.
Oh.
So
Oh, have fun.
yeah, it'll be
Have
cool.
fun. Softball mom, not soccer mom. All right,
Right.
my dinner's ready. I'm jumping.
Okay.
Good
enjoy
night,
your
everyone.
dinner.
Thanks everybody
Love
for tuning
you.
in. Peace.
Ciao.
Love you
Bye.
too. See
Bye.
Oh, sorry, I cut her. I cut her
You
off.
did. No, I think she cut it.
I know,
She's-
but she was about to, and then all right. So Betero says ARCA witnesses tech then dog experts. That's the order that Z says Betero has said. NH dudes, just because you ladies rock, just can't stop the madness. Please, the charade is beyond frustrating. Sorry, I should have gotten us more of these while she was here. But hi, lovely ladies. Thanks for the fantastic collab. How did the SUV time travel? Bob Canoni's Baloney wants to know, how did the SUV time travel? It's
Magic,
a Lexus, not
obviously.
a DeLorean.
Yeah, magic. I mean, that's it. I mean, they somehow it time traveled and made it all the way from 34 Fairview to One Meadows in the blink of an eye.
In 3 minutes or something. It's
Tech wizardry. That's the answer.
Thanks, DSN. Auntie Bev, in my opinion, EV1 involved with the Commonwealth is sus. So wait, what's EV1?
In my opinion, evidence one involved with the CW is sus. Interesting. Only male DNA was identified.
Was
on-
unidentified on
unidentified.
Donna Keith's shoes.
Clothes, but no mention of any unidentified female DNA. Didn't Jen McCabe and Kerry Roberts claim they did chest compressions? That is interesting. That is
Right.
interesting.
That is interesting. Good points. Good points. Thank you. Garrett Wing should testify first, then Proctor, then Dr. Russell, then ARCA to close. So Bob was
Like, I don't know about like jumping into the dog thing first, but it does. Like, that might be a genius move, D, because they're not addressing the arm injuries at all. So like maybe that is a way to right away. They're like, oh, Thank you. Finally, somebody explained what the dog or the arm injuries are. It's a dog. That makes totally. So maybe that is the move. I mean, it's definitely something worth thinking about for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely something we're thinking about. Jen's nefarious 507 call to Coco. The ripped pocket, we talked about this on his back of his jeans, was the opposite side from the grass stains. I think it was from dragging him. Would be great to have the pocket swabbed for DNA. Good point.
Very good point.
Sarah Witherose says, same thing, ripped jean pocket. When they carried John from the front lawn, they might have used the pocket as a handle. Love you both, XO. Join us at Triumph.
Right, like the belt in a pocket to carry him like this. Like if you got a guy that's heavy and you got a couple of guys.
Yeah, he's big.
He's
Someone
a big
needs. I mean, Shammy, wow,
he's knocked out. Like he's obviously not deceased, but that is definitely dead weight if you got somebody that's knocked out. Because the person's just like, literally dead to the world in terms of not being conscious. So, I mean, it feels heavier, even though the poundage is the same for whatever reason.
And Sham Wow says the law enforcement officers from a different agency. So, as he points out, that's what they kept using to refer to federal agents with Jen McCabe. Do you think the defense will be allowed to introduce ARCA the way as with Jen? When that was happening, Shammy, I was saying this is what the defense needs to ask the judge if they can do with ARCA. They should do the exact same thing, that they were hired by a different law enforcement agency. I think they should, but I don't know that that's what the judge.
It's such bullshit that she's not allowing them to say who hired him. It's like it's taking away the power of what those two guys are, which is our truly independent witnesses. Like, if we had any case in our entire career where we found out that there was some independent investigation that we had no idea was going on, and then all of a sudden they fall in our laps with saying exactly what we need them to say to win the case, it would be like manna from heaven, and she's stripping them of that. I mean, to me, that's one of the biggest things that goes to her bias, because I don't see what the harm is. I think it's a bigger harm in terms of the jury sitting there wasting time in the deliberation room trying to figure out who the fuck they are.
Right.
And who they work for and who hired them. Yeah.
Yeah. And aspiring court reporter points out two things that were impactful from the first trial that were missed with Jen McCabe this time. One, multiple calls to John's phone is behavior while searching for the phone. I'm sure the defense is going to come back to that in closing, wherever the case may be. And two, the call overheard on Jen's voicemail after 911 call. They did play that. They did play that.
Right.
So although I'm sure when the defense is talking, they're gonna circle back to that. Amy's Positive Pathway wants to know, did you ladies know Judge Bev is getting awarded by the Person of the Year? Why? I mean, that's a damn good question. We've been talking about her getting this award, and did Aperture sponsor the event? But a really good question, Amy, is why? Why? Right. For what?
Did you donate a bunch to like kids with cancer? Because it sure the fuck isn't what you're doing on the bench, lady.
Well, no, what is it? Because she shut it down? Her ruling?
Well, I mean, that's the inference.
Right.
From all of us that are watching this case.
That's Amy's inference.
I mean, it's the Norfolk, Bar Association. Like who knows? They're probably just trying to get on her good side. I don't know. Like, hey, let's go to her. She's going to be the biggest judge in the land now.
Aunt BB 2 says, Allie, Bob, and chat, thank you for making all the cupcakes feel welcomed when Mel had to take a personal day off. So I'm just going to go back to this.
My cupcake drops.
Fucking insanely.
Thank you, Mandy.
And thank you, Aunt BB2.
Thank you, Aunt B. Yes. Did they talk about Bev like Berkey in her event? Yeah, right. I mean,
who knows? Probably.
Right.
Glowing. I'm surprised there hasn't been some kind of has that happened yet? Has the event happened? Like there's gonna be video that surfaces. There has to be.
people were talking about it. So Classic Overthinker says the microdots video 1342, someone running behind the cars. That was something the defense pointed out in the first trial. Who is this person running towards the house behind the cars? So we'll have to see if they bring that back up either in closing or with, sorry, I got the hiccups, with another witness. Jen's Nefarious 507 call. Oh, I think we thoughts about the taillight found that wasn't from Karen Reed's car, and that Berkey's son was videoed with a broken taillight just after. Now, I wish Mel was still here because I know nothing about this. Have you heard about this?
No, I don't know shit about that. Did Mel know about it?
Well, I didn't. This wasn't asked while she was still here. So, but the thought, and I mentioned earlier that, you know, I didn't think it got conveyed to the jury that there was taillight that wasn't from Karen Reed's car that was found. The defense did a real good job with the glass, but there was taillight that wasn't found. So thanks, Jen's Nefarious. Selective memory, in my opinion, needs to counter the Commonwealth, but I would go with one ARCA expert. So that's who she'd call first. Keep Dr. Wolf, the same as you, Bob. Keep Dr. Wolf till last. He will destroy the Commonwealth's case. Fresh memory for the jury.
I think I had it the inverse. I think I had Wolf to explain that there's no way that taillight exploded from hitting a person.
Right, because it counters
first and then put Proctor on. So now you got Johnny playing the taillight guy, and then end it with Rensler saying, look, you know, biomechanically, John O'Keefe wasn't hit by a vehicle, and then you end it like that. So I would just flip those two, but
right. But the same concept.
Yes.
Yep. Norman says, doesn't matter if Karen Reed said I hit him. The science trumps a confession.
100%. And that's not a goddamn confession.
No, it's not even a confession.
Right? It's like, it drives me nuts. It is like in no way, shape, or form could that ever be considered a confession. Ever. It's just not a confession.
Thanks. Currently pursuing law degree. She loves this collab.
Oh, thank you.
At Melanie, say it was Jen McCabe 911 call. So sorry we didn't get to this while Mel was still here. Say it, Jen McCabe 911 call. Sorry, it was probably
All right. Thank you though. Iceman, Mount Rushmore of our Queen Lady Law tubers, Melanie Little, Andrea Burkhart, Emily D. Baker, and Ali Mata. Love you all, ladies, and keep up the amazing work. Yes, that is quite a Mount Rushmore of badass women lawyers. Love it.
Yeah. Dual verdict watch with Mel. Oh, well, I'm sure we'll have some verdict watch time with Mel for sure. I don't see why we can't squeeze that in. Julie Sriracha, couldn't the defense have done own testing on clothes? If so, why do you think they didn't? They could conduct their own testing. And I mean, it could be a number of things that they didn't think there was anything else maybe there. It's better to keep it vague and talk about what they didn't test rather than test and find nothing. Or they just had so many other things that they had to focus. I mean, you've got to decide where the dollars need to go, where the dollars need to go. So money is definitely a thing.
Always.
Pierre says, I think they need to show the Pierre.
It's Pierre.
Sorry, Pierre, right. I think they need to show the waterfall video and point out the conflict with Officer John O'Keefe. I venture to guess the video's gonna come back up again.
I mean, if you're not gonna put Higgins on, which I just don't know if they are, because the reason that I think that they're not going to put Higgins on is because of the fact that all of his that was the one move that Hank did, I think, to kind of take the steam out of the defense, putting Higgins on during their case in chief, which was have Bukaki read all the text messages between Hank and between Higgins and Karen. To me, because it's like, but it still might be worth putting him on just for that bullshit, like him going to why the fuck are you going to the police station at 1:30 in the morning, bro? Because you sure the fuck didn't move any cars. We watched the video. We seen it. You didn't move shit. And
Right.
now why are you going to a base and throwing
Right.
your phone away? Like, I mean, it might be worth it just to ask them those 2 questions and then let them leave, you know?
Right.
I mean,
And
I
if
don't know.
anybody, I'd be shocked if anyone here hasn't already subscribed to Attorney Melanie Little's YouTube, but there it is. Check it out. Subscribe. You know, she's got all the deets.
She is all knowing. She is omnipotent as far as Karen Reed goes. All right, y'all. We love you. If you're new to our channel, please give us a sub, hit the like on the way out, share, like, subscribe, all those things. To our people over here, we love you guys. To our mods, thank you for double duty today. This one was more challenging. I saw that there were some
got these
definite
2 new
trolls.
members to say hi to.
Oh, family hug.
Christy Sanderson and Missy Cohen.
I love you. Welcome to the fam. Love to have you over here. All right, guys. I hope that everybody has an amazing weekend. Hopefully you get some decent weather. If not, spend some time with family and friends. If you see a veteran, give them a hug, for real. So thank you for your service. I mean it. What they did for us and what they continue to do for us is pretty amazing. So I got the great love. Oh, and then we got one last New Hampshire dude, 603. I do not believe she ever said I hit him. But if she did, please explain why that is not a confession for us non-lawyer peeps. I mean, the easiest way to do it is typically what they consider an actual confession, like in terms of if you're talking about kind of an interrogation type situation. It can't be something that's just bare bones that gives nothing to law enforcement that substantiates what they're saying. Like just a general proclamation, like I did it is nothing. Because if the cop then says, okay, and say it's like it's a gunshot wound that was the cause of death for this victim, and this guy's like, I did it, and the cop says, okay, well, what did you do? He says, oh yeah, well, I took the knife and I stabbed him in the gut. I mean, like, you just need more for it to be considered a legitimate, true confession.
Right. Plus, as we've been saying since day one, this is not a confession. You've got to put it in context. The best example is from, I shot the clerk. I shot the clerk. From my cousin Vinny, where they're like, you shot the clerk. He said the words, I shot the clerk. I shot the clerk. Now, this is not the same thing, but at this point, she has come to believe that that is a possible scenario. Everyone's telling her he never went in the house. He was left there. She's thinking, oh my God, could I have hit him? And
or just this, exactly what you said. There's a difference between I hit him and I hit him. I hit him. I mean, that is clearly being stated as a question. You don't even need to say, did I hit him? Could I have hit him? I hit him. I mean,
I hit him. It's
like all about tone and
you're
time.
convincing yourself at that point that is
what. Just asking a question.
Right,
like that was a stream of consciousness for a woman who's going through the most traumatic event that she's ever experienced in her entire life, and she's puking out everything that is running through her mind, like every single one of us would do in that exact same situation. If you're going to sit here and say, oh, well, if I just you're full of shit. If you found somebody that you loved, I don't care what the state of the relationship is in, at that point, when you find that person, you are spinning out mentally, and you are just, everything's going to be running through your mind. And if Karen was buzzed to the point where she's not clear on shit, I mean, I drank for a long time. I had, I'm not proud to admit it, but I had plenty of brownouts where, I'm drinking too much bourbon and I'm asking Allison like, oh, what did we do last night? She's like, you don't remember hitting the second bar? I'm like, no recollection of it, but I was up walking around, talking to people. So it's like, if she has no real recollection of that night and she's trying to piece it together that following morning, she's just thinking out loud. See, like, for them to try to turn that around and turn it in to a confession is disgusting. And beyond that, it's terrifying, because if they had some evidence to substantiate what they're claiming happened, that's one thing. Then you can use that as a cherry on the top. To try to make it their entire case, which is exactly what they're doing, is utter bullshit. And it should scare the shit out of everybody in this country, because if the government's going to stoop to that level in order to get a conviction, we should all be very, very afraid.
Right. And to the point that a lot of you are making in the comments here, they didn't arrest her after there. Like Charlie Lynn's like, no follow-up questions. No cops took her in. They did not think she was speaking realistically in like factual terms. They did not take it as a confession. They did not think it was a confession. This was a woman who was panicked, screaming nonsense sometimes, just out of her
And
mind.
complete trauma.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. Like she is probably never in her life, and she's dealt with some shit, like with her medical issues. She has never in her life dealt with anything like that in that moment. Like none of us. I mean, we're lucky. Consider ourselves lucky if we've never experienced anything like that in our lives. Like discovering someone that you love dead on a lawn. Your mind is going to explode and not in a good way. Like, oh, not mine, but like you're gonna be spinning out. You're like, oh my God. You're gonna be like wondering, like everything's gonna be going through your mind. You're gonna be trying to like put together that entire night and be trying to figure it out. And you're gonna be thinking out loud. It's crazy. It's crazy that they're trying to really convict her on those bullshit words, because I don't care if she did say I hit him, because like it would have been in the form of I hit him. Like, I mean, you hear the difference in the tone, right? One is I hit him.
Everyone.
The other one's like, I hit him. Like, they should have asked, did her shoulders go up when she's shrugging when she said it? Yeah, I don't know. All right, let's roll. You guys are amazing. Thank you, babe, for hosting this with Mel. I thought it was awesome. I wasn't going to jump on at all, but then I decided I did kind of want to ask her some questions before she dipped.
Yep.
So, all right, you guys are amazing. Thank you, mods. Once again, thank you. Again, if you're new to the channel, please give us a sub, share, like, subscribe on the way out. If you're a replay crew, throw a comment in there. It helps us in the algorithm. We love you guys.
Like I said, if you, for some reason you're not already subscribed to Melanie Little's channel, subscribe.
Go be a cupcake.
Go be a cupcake.
Be sweet. All right, y'all. We love you, because without you, I'm just an old
My
man.
cupcake gumdrop.
Bye.
Pop